fellow Tamers and DigiDestined, it's Mike, aka Sinaku from Overground, and today we are showcasing the second place red WarGreymon Turbo list that we took to the gyrosean hosted Sans Omni event. This is an event where Omnimon was banned in any way, shape, or form, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So we got talking, the buddies and we got talking, and we decided, with Omnimon banned in a format, what becomes the best deck? And we came to the conclusion that it's likely going to be purple. So we decided to build a deck without Omnimon that could pretty much counter purple in every single capacity. And this is kind of the masterpiece that we came up with. And unfortunately, there was no fifth round to determine if we could actually take it all the way and take first place, because after round 4, there was a one single undefeated player. So thankfully for us, where we built this deck to have a strong purple matchup, out of the 4 rounds that we did play, all 4 of them happened to be purple. One after the other. And we won our first 3 purple matches in a row. Our first match was 2-0, our second match was 2-0, our third match was 2-1, and our fourth match, we went into time in game 3, and unfortunately the way time rules work, although I was ahead in security, I wasn't able to actually win the game because there was no dedicated winner declared by the end of the 3-turn procedure that how time works. So yeah, 3 wins and a draw, giving us 10 points total and finishing us in second place. But yeah, I'm super happy with how this deck performed, and even like going into an Omnimon format, I still feel like this deck would be very strong. And I wouldn't necessarily call it budget because there are a lot of expensive cards in here, but if you don't have access to Omnimon but you still want to play red and you do have access to some of the cards, maybe not all of them, this could be a fun alternative for you to play. At the end of the day, it's pretty much an upgraded starter deck, but I'm going to go over some of the cards and kind of talk about why certain cards were chosen, specifically as to why they could beat the purple matchup. So we'll start with the rookies. We've got 2 sets of Agumon. So we've got the promo Agumon, where it has the inheritable, where if we have Greymon in our name, we get plus 2,000 DP. And the standard structure deck Agumon, where it's just if we evolve over the Agumon, our Digimon gets plus 1,000. These are here because the ultimate plan of the deck is to get up to a WarGreymon with as much DP as possible, ideally over 13,000. That was the threshold, and then swing with that WarGreymon, take as many securities as possible in one shot, and not trigger any of our opponent's options. And the reason I say 13,000 specifically is because Millenniumon now becomes the threshold for the largest Digimon in the format when you take Omnimon away. And that's again why we thought purple might be the best deck, because purple has access to Millenniumon, as well as all the cool value tricks that it can do through like Piedmon and Night Raid and all that other stuff. So because now we've reached kind of the new, like Omnimon's here, I can't really see my hands in terms of level, but Millenniumon's just under here in terms of, power level, like strictly through DP. So because the highest amount of DP that we could hit in a security was 13,000, I want to make sure that my Megas, but primarily WarGreymon, will always be over 13,000, so it will never die to security, and it'll always get all of its security checks in sequence. So, moving on, the rest of the rookies are, pretty standard. 4 Modern Dramon, 2 Beyond. Moving forward. Our champion lineup is pretty standard for what you see in red. Again, as I've discussed in the Tyrannomon list, you always see 4-deck Tyrannomon, you always see 4 Quadramon. The difference here is that normally we would play 4 of the Security Tech Greymon. In this case, we're dividing up to play 2 of the Security Tech Greymon and 2 of the BT1 Greymon. This has the inheritable plus 2,000. And again, this goes hand in hand with these Agumons. I just want to have more opportunities where I can give my WarGreymon that DP boost. And if I have to evolve over a Monarchmon or Beomon, because I haven't seen my Agumons yet, this Greymon gives me another opportunity to give a DP boost as I build up to my Megas. The ultimate lineup, we have 4 Groundramon, which is pretty standard. Again, Groundramon and Tyrannomon, they're the cheapest evolutions that we have, and because this is WarGreymon Turbo, quote-unquote, this lets us get built up to a WarGreymon a little bit faster. And then we've got SkullGreymon. SkullGreymon at 3 is here specifically for the turns where our opponent uses Piedmon. Usually when our opponent uses Piedmon, they're putting us to like 9 or 10, maybe a little bit under, but generally around that threshold. And what SkullGreymon allows us to do is that usually under Piedmon, they can bring back at least 1 blocker, maybe 2. But if they have 1 blocker and we still have a big board, we can just drop SkullGreymon down, eliminate that blocker immediately, and then just swing out for game. It's also here because we thought that black might make a resurgence, because without Omnimon, black is not a great deck, but it's not the best deck by any stretch of the imagination. But having an extra copy of SkullGreymon just helps us out the black WarGreymon as well. So now we're going to move on to the last ultimate, and that's the secret rare Middle Greymon here. So this Middle Greymon is here for a couple of reasons. First of all, it combos really well with this promo Agumon because it becomes an 11,000 attacker. Second of all, it's mostly in here for our inheritable, because again, in combination with our Greymon here, it gives us more ways to build up our stack in a different and unique way, and more opportunities to see DP buffs. And because this is the strongest DP buff, not including anything else, this under a Greymon automatically makes it 14,000. That gets us exactly where we need to be. If you ever have to use it on its own, it's not a terrible effect because it has security attack +2 by default. However, when you are attacking, you have to lose 5 memory, which kind of sucks sometimes, but there are ways to mitigate that in this deck the further we go down the line. But this, on top of a Greymon, means that, and on top of an Agumon especially, means that you can swing for security attack +3 at 11,000 really early on in the game. And that's actually pretty cool because it puts your opponent under a lot of pressure. And again, as we've discussed, 13,000 is kind of the threshold, but just being able to swing in for that much security really early on really puts your opponent on a clock. And because we're playing a lot of opportunities to give our Digimon plus security on a regular basis, we're generally using our swings to generate massive tempo pushes against our opponent where we're constantly getting ahead of them on security. So while you're not usually attacking with this Metal Greymon, if you need to, there is a way to kind of mitigate that, which I'll get to at the end of the deck. And then finally, the star of the deck, WarGreymon himself. This deck, this WarGreymon is just fantastic. So when Digivolving, you get security attack +1 already. And then for every check that it performs, if your opponent hits an option card, that option card does not trigger. So again, in purple, there are very powerful option cards. Things like Heat Viper that can be added to the hand, Trump Sword specifically that can help destroy an unsuspended Digimon that would otherwise would potentially be attacking for game after the WarGreymon. Night Ray, which allows them to bring back another body that could potentially use to swing against you or to be building up a new stack. There's a very powerful suite of option cards in purple, and it goes further than that because, you know, under the assumption that we would have played other matchups, this can also stop things. Green also becomes a very powerful deck in a format like this, so this stops things like Flower Cannon, this stops things like terrorist clusters, etc., etc. So we didn't think we'd expect to see a lot of blue, so I mean, this does stop Hammer Spark, obviously, but and funny enough, blue actually won the whole thing, so I'm curious to see what his list looks like, obviously without Omnimon, but yeah, I was under the pretense that you take Omnimon away from blue, Omnimon just becomes like Metal Garurumon Turbo, and I feel like that's not as powerful, but kudos to the guy that won. I believe his name was Ice Barrier, so congrats to him. Moving on, we're playing 2 Gallantmon, and again, this is primarily because we were expecting a heavy purple meta. So we wanted to play a couple copies of Gallantmon so that if we got into the late game where our opponent had a very stacked trash pile, we could just swing in Gallantmon, burn them out, and potentially threaten game with Gallantmon by himself. And finally, the last 2 megas are 2 Volcanic Dramon. Again, this is really strong on its own in general, but when you're talking about a purple meta specifically, your opponent's generally rookie rushing you in purple. And as we know, Volcanic Dramon is always really good against rookie rush specifically. And it's really good against, whatever they bring back off of Piedmon, especially if they bring back like Devimons and stuff. It's just easy things for Volcanic to eat up. And it's also really good in the green matchup because if they do decide to go wide with their smaller Digimon, like Kabuterimon and stuff like that as well, it can destroy. So there's just a lot of opportunities for Volcanic to come up. Originally we were playing 3 Volcanic and 4 WarGreymon, but we decided to cut both of them just to make space for the Gallantmon because it was such a powerful finisher that we didn't want to disregard that or disrespect that. And then finally, the last cards in the deck, we got 4 Gaia Force, 2 Gravity Crush, and 2 copies of the Red Tai from set 1. Tai is here because, again, you just don't want to get choked, but it also helps us to get our full stacks of WarGreymon, an extra security attack. So when we evolve into our WarGreymon here, he gets security attack +1 by default through his own effect. When we combo that with Tai, he gets security attack +2. And then the further you combo that with something like this Greymon, for example, we can get a WarGreymon that's over 13,000 who can swing for potential security attack +3. That means we're taking 4 securities at once. No options are going to trigger whatsoever, and we're not going to be blown out by Millenniumon insecurity. And that's pretty much the goal of this deck, is just ride up to WarGreymon, swing out, and just rip your opponent's security to shreds. And it feels so good, not gonna lie. And yeah, so I guess the big glaring thing that we gotta talk about is just Gravity Crush. Gravity Crush is kind of like the red Hammer Spark, but way worse, because it does absolutely nothing in security. And Gravity Spark is just a 0 cost, you gain 2 memory, and at the end of the turn you lose 2 memory. So similar to the memory borrowing attackers, the Metal Greymon, WarGreymon, etc., etc. And this is here for 2 reasons. First of all, well, not 2 reasons, several reasons, but the main 2 reasons I had it in there is because there are situations where I need to evolve into Gallant, and because I only get 3 from Tai, I need to just bump up a little bit, go into Gallant. That only puts me to 1. My turn doesn't end, and I still get to attack with Gallantmon. The second reason it's here is there's actually a cool combo that comes up with this Metal Greymon. Because if I go to 3 with Tai and then I Gravity Crush to 5, I can attack with this Metal Greymon, go to 0, while still checking potentially 3 security cards out of my opponent, and not having to end my turn, which is actually really important. Gravity Crush came up a lot during the tournament as well, because I was able to just kind of evolve more Digimon more often without having to pass my turn as well. And then if I can end my turn by evolving into something like a Dark Tyrannomon, I'm able to give my opponent 3. Or if I evolve into something that costs 2, I'm only technically giving my opponent 4. So there's ways to kind of mitigate the loss of Gravity Crush and not have to worry about your opponent getting so much memory on the back foot. And because we're playing against purple, purple also plays Purple Matte, which is a memory tamer in their own right, so they're actually going to be getting 3 memory regardless. So by playing Gravity Crush in a smart way, you can not really give your opponent too much extra memory than what they would be getting regardless. But yeah, that is the deck. I was going to do a tournament report, but unfortunately it was literally the same thing every round. It was just purple, 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 purple. Yeah, and literally the deck did exactly what it was meant to do. We got up to WarGreymon, WarGreymon swung, WarGreymon punch face. Good times. I think there might be some bit of me that was on stream with gyrosean and Max DePera commentating. So if that is up at the time and I can find it, I will link it in this channel as well. But yeah, this is the second place red WarGreymon Turbo list, playing without Omnimon. That, yeah, it was a really fun event. And it was really kind of refreshing to not have to worry about seeing Omnimon in my hand and not have to worry about my opponent having Omnimon. Obviously, I had to worry about my opponents having Millenniumon, which is pretty much the same thing. And I was really hoping to see some fun and creative decks. And although I did through third parties, I never got to encounter them and play them, which is really unfortunate. But it is what it is. Yeah, this is it. If you want to give this a shot, if you want to include Omnimons in it, I'm sure there's other cards you can shuffle around. If you don't own any Omnimons, but you still want to play a competitive red list, I feel like this is a good kind of skeleton to take with as well. I wouldn't necessarily call it budget, because there are some expensive cards in here, but these cards can, like the Metal Greymons and the Gallantmons, can also be replaced for other cards as well. These Metal Greymons could probably be replaced with the memory borrowing Metal Greymons to give you a bit more memory to make your plays. And the Gallantmons, again, could be replaced with extra copy of Volcanicmons, or if you have extra copies of WarGreymons as well. They could also be replaced with Phoenixmons as well, just because Phoenixmons are a good kind of generic, easy, high DP Digimon for you to play in this deck that you can get Security +1 with between Tai and the Greymon as well. So yeah, if you guys have any comments or suggestions or criticism, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you like what you see and you want to support the channel, please feel free to like and consider subscribing. We're trying to reach 300 by the end of the month, and unfortunately January is almost done. So help us reach as close to 300 as possible and help us push to reach that 400 mark by the end of February. We're trying to get at least 100 subs every month so we can hit that 1,000 mark by October, because at that point we'll have been on YouTube for a full year. So any support helps. Tell your friends, share the video around. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. This has been Mike, aka Sinaku from Overground, and we'll see you guys in the next one.